Good evening. I'm going to call to order the Raleigh Planning Board meeting for Wednesday, January 24th, 2018. We have a couple items on the agenda today. The first item we have is dealing with the improvements to Pine Grove School, and then we have a continued hearing that starts at 7:50 regarding a site plan for a solar array at 623 Weathersfield Street. So the first item on the agenda we're going to get started with is an informal presentation pertaining to the new site improvements at Pine Grove School, and I believe we have some people here to make the presentation. So if you wouldn't mind just let us know who you are and
sure. I'm just going to sit forward.
Please, yeah, we don't really have much of a...
John Richardson, I'm the project manager for the architect, Dory Whittier, and this is Emily Ray, our educational planner and assistant PM, also with Dory Whittier. So we thought we'd just go over broad brush, give you a sense of the project. It is what the MSBA calls a limited scope repair project. So we're working within the footprint of the existing building. That won't change, but we are doing some site improvements as much as we can. So we'll talk a little bit about that scope, touch on a bit of safety, traffic, circulation, go over the parking. We're going to increase the amount of parking spaces, and then talk a little bit about the utility work that will be occurring on the site. And if you have any questions, just interrupt us.
Sure, thanks.
So schedule-wise, we're just about to start bidding. We'll be finishing our construction documents another week. And it's a construction manager at risk project, so we already have the GC/CM on board. It's the subcontractors who will be bidding.
Okay.
That's, like I said, that's going out to bid on February 2nd. We'll wrap that up at the end of February with a bid opening and the rest of the contractors. The first phase, we've worked very closely with the district and the construction manager. It's a phased project. It's fairly convoluted phases, but
sure.
We've tried to balance construction needs and school function. And so the first phase will start with April vacation. And the district has worked well to set up the gymnasium as a temporary kitchen, or they will be setting up as a temporary kitchen food service. Because we need to, we'll get to this in the utilities, but we need to run new power, a new utility duct bank out to the building from the street. That's going to disrupt. We need to do a new kitchen, so that's going to be a lot of disruption. It's more than we can do over the summer, so we need to get that work started early.
Just, and because I have kids there. So what does that mean to the gym? There won't be gym for from beginning April vacation through the rest of the year?
There's still physical education that can happen, but part of it will be
outside, sure.
They're going to set up some refrigerators and a couple service stations. So they'll try to do as much outdoors as they can.
It's a tight gym to begin with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And town hall also, town meeting will still occur, and it will be in the gym.
Great.
We're working on all the details of that.
Maybe in the back.
Right.
I just had a couple of questions. It wasn't like having to do with the layout, but I'm just wondering, the contractor, are we getting like a guarantee of, say if the floor peels up in like 10 years, or, because then they have the gymnasium problem with the floor, and then roofs start leaking, and I don't know.
There are a few leaks in the roof. We're redoing the roof.
No, but like, do we get a guarantee from the contractor?
Yeah, there's warranties on all the products. It's a 25-year warranty on the roof.
But that's guaranteed, so labor will be included with the repair, or like, how's that?
At that point, it's materials that you get a 1-year initial labor.
I don't know if they put it like, you know, you see these government projects that fall apart in like 8 years, and then we're all paying for it again. I just want to make sure.
That's all through with different.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know that's all been negotiated.
Right.
Part of the finance agency's requirements.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So just briefly, just go through the phasing. There's 5 phases. We'll be starting, as I say, during school with April vacation in a little bit. I'll show you on the plans. And then the whole site will go over to the contractor in the summer. There'll be a lot of work, including some site work. And then we'll be working around the building in the rest of the calendar year. So phase 2 is the balance of the north wing. That's where administration. It will be where art and music are. That's 1-story part. Then we do both floors of the south wing, separate phases. That brings us past Christmas into the midwinter. And then we'll do the final, and then that brings us through probably till May, at the end of the south wing. And then the final phase, summer of 2019, will be both stories of the east wing. That's the newer version, newer part of the back, as well as the balance of the site work. And then it will be fully finished and occupied September 2019. So it's a pretty quick schedule.
Sure. Keeping the kids in there for that time, I guess that.
We are.
Yeah.
Emily was going to show you the new plans. both for construction and to improve the function of the building. We're kind of coordinating the grades so they're, you know, more balanced.
Next slide.
Yeah,
Oh,
almost.
excuse me.
Just, it is a limited scope repair, so the outside will look very similar. You can see a different site pattern in terms of the paving. We'll show you that in a minute. And we will be replacing, in addition to the roof, all the windows will be new. And if you look carefully, you can see that there's rooftop units, because the new building will have dehumidified / air conditioned air. And then I'm gonna give it, windows.
So like what John was saying, this is a renovation-only project, so it'll be within the existing footprint, but we are reconfiguring a small amount of walls, and that's to reorganize the school so that they're better situated for grade level teams, and it relocates art and music so that you can kind of have an arts wing along with administration. And there is some site work associated with the project, and so through that, we'll be able to kind of clearly define 3 entrances. The main entrance, which is as you know it now, and then an entrance off of between the north and east wing. That will become the bus loop, and we'll show a site plan in just a minute that really shows that. And then likewise, the gym entrance will be a community access point for any kind of gym use after school hours. And so it is the existing building, but it will feel almost like a new building when you go in. Completely new finishes throughout. This is a rendering of the all-purpose room. So this is where town meeting happens and will happen. So totally different from what it is now. New floors, new wall coverings, new lighting, new furniture. So that should be a welcome upgrade. We're also adding some windows throughout and changing some of the glass, like John said in the last slide. The windows will all be new, and there will be some opportunities you can see in the back of the room. Those are all new curtain wall to bring some light into the room.
Back to me.
Up to you.
So as I alluded to, one of the big site aspects is bringing a new electrical duct bank into the building. We're going to work around the existing gas line, which is sufficient because the building isn't changing, so the use isn't increased. But we need to bring in new power and data. We've met with all the utilities relative to that. So that runs across and parallel to the existing drive, so there's a lot of coordination. The contractor's going to try to do a big chunk of that over April vacation, and they'll probably come back to that in parts, but always being able, once school is back open after April vacation, to still use that as it has been used. Part of their work is the completion of this line is it actually runs through the all-purpose room. The new electrical room will be behind the all-purpose room. We have to build a new electrical room and a new boiler room, get those up and running while maintaining the existing ones, because the old parts of the building will run off the old systems and the new parts off the new, so we have to run them simultaneously basically for the next year. So that's the big site utility aspect. And then we're also improving stormwater. We've just got our final order of conditions from Conservation Commission. There'll be 2 underground infiltration basins, and then we're redoing and replacing the existing septic fields with 1 pressurized field out back. Currently there's 2 that are still in use, gravity fed down here. There'll be a pressurized line that runs back. This will probably happen second summer, that this will be put in. And also, as part of talking to Concom, we're going to improve the head walls, kind of clean them out where some of the discharge is right now. There's a wetlands buffer that's roughly along here. So we worked within that. We're managing stormwater up to current standards as opposed to what was done before, which doesn't meet current standards, so we didn't have to. And then parking. So this is the existing parking count. We're going to maintain the access to, but we're not touching the parking by the town fields, those 24 spaces. That's why they're in blue. So there's about 74 spaces on site right now, and we're going to bring that up to 100, as well as, I think you're going to talk about the circulation. We're going to improve the circulation by moving the buses back here, but we'll get slightly increased parking out front. So It's not perfect, we had to work with the site as it is. The curb cut will be a little narrower, but essentially be in the same location. So we're working around that, trying to manage that. You want to talk about the site?
So, yep, this is a picture of the site plan, and like John said, we're working within the existing site, just trying to improve some of the circulation, because right now it's a little hectic. Here, traffic still comes in this way, there will be a bus loop for cars, and then, like John said, buses will circle around the back, so we can separate out that parent drop-off and the bus drop-off, kind of make it a little safer for pedestrians. Also,
Have you been there for pickup and drop-off
We
now?
have had to reschedule our meetings around that.
yep, we watch it happen.
Hey, it works, but.
It works, we're trying to make it better, it still won't be perfect, but we're doing the best that we can. There's also emergency access around the south wing for any emergency vehicles. Likewise, the play equipment will all be replaced in new surface on the ground there, so everything will be ADA accessible. And here's just a close-up of the parent drop-off. We're widening the access lane here so that cars can also queue along the side. Students would be able to get out the passenger side without having to cross traffic, and then turn around the loop and exit back out, whereas buses would continue to drive through. And then this is just a zoom in on the front plaza. We're regrading that so that it will be a steady slope, so everything ADA accessible, no need for stairs or railings. And what you're seeing here is spread bollards and then boulders configured in a playful way so that it prevents any cars from coming into the building, and it acts as a security measure but still is very welcoming.
What are they doing with the bricks that were bought there, or placed there?
We're relocating those and recreating a memorial garden. There's also some benches
Yeah.
and
Yes.
some trees.
That's a whole memorial
Yep,
system.
yep, yep.
Wait a minute here.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
that was a
Okay, all right, yeah.
definite
Yeah,
a
so we're
consideration of the
Consolidating and
landscaping
moving
plan.
that. And also, we're gonna do the same ramping technique for the all-purpose room. So this will be an accessible entrance
Yeah.
exit to
Yeah.
the all-purpose room. Right now, there's 2 sets of stairs.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And here is just a rendering of that front view as it's reworked. Then likewise, this is a zoom in of the bus drop-off. So we're able to create bus lanes so that everybody can come in, park, kids will unload or load buses here, and then when it's not pick-up or drop-off time, this could be used as a secondary playground. And the community gardens will be relocated to right below the town fields.
Is there, just out of curiosity, any effort made to actually restore the garden, or is that still gonna be to the volunteer? That was built by the PTA not too long ago, so I wonder does the project include this, bring that within the scope, really?
Yeah, because we're building a new one. The existing one is right in the middle of the buses.
Right.
Right, so that will be all new, and then there'll be a shed out there, and nice planter beds and some seating, and I think there's even some writable surface on the
Right.
shed so that it could be used as an outdoor classroom.
Wonderful.
And yeah, like you can start to see there's accessible pathways throughout the site that will lead you to the garden and to the fields.
You want to mention off hours?
Off hours, this could also be used for community parking for when the gym is in use after school and on weekends. So this is just a rendering of that bus drop-off loop. That will be the bus entrance. And that's all we have for you today.
So all the buses, when they pull in, dropping off, are they gonna sit there until like all the buses come in and all the kids
Right,
are in? If that was-
exactly. So they do have to cross, because there's one entrance
So
to
they
the
have to
site,
wait
but it'll
till-
be
yeah.
controlled,
Yeah.
both
Right.
at dismissal and entrance.
And the way the buses are arranged, nobody should be crossing a drive lane. All the buses should be parked as the kids are exiting and entering the school.
Not the biggest deal, but do the buses have to back out and then
No, they can actually
do a
pull.
K-turn?
As long as they start
can
with the
pull
front.
Oh,
through.
okay, gotcha. So
Yeah.
there's no-
We've
yeah.
done that. We did
Yep.
that so that the entrance is all visible, so it's easy to manage from the staff point of view. You see the kids get on, they're not walking around the back of the bus.
Gotcha. Terrific.
That's it.
Well, it's not that, I think a lot of us have seen some of this before, so it's good to know that the progress is full steam ahead. And from our perspective, I mean, I think, while ordinarily this would fall in front of this board, I think it's not in front of us for various reasons, given that it's a town project and handled by the school department. So nonetheless, I think, Larry, you still looked at some of the site plan, and
We reviewed it actually for the Conservation Commission, submitted our reports through the planning board, and I think the Concom, as I believe you
Right.
said, has issued or about to issue.
They have
a
issued
final
the
order.
final order.
good. And so obviously, you're satisfied with the way everything went, and great. All my questions are sort of not for this board, so I almost want to hold off on asking them. But it's exciting, and it's good to see that this is going to be done. I think it's going to be a real asset for the town.
Yeah.
Yeah, and fortunately, one of my daughter will be there for half a year, and the other for a full year. So we're
It'll be a great half year.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's great. Anyone from the community here that has seeking a comment on this project?
I'm just curious, when you mentioned the power going in and you were gonna go around the gas lines, when is that phase, the kids gonna be out of school when you're doing that? Because traditionally, gas lines run 18 inches deep
Right.
and you're running power
So-
close
so-
to it, is that?
Much of the work during school is going to be second shift. It's going to start after school is dismissed, first off, so it'll start at about 3 o'clock. And that's written into our contract. That's part of the thing, what we worked out with the construction manager, just to shift it in time. But there will be work out front in the spring between April vacation and the end of school, but it will always be finished and tidied up in a manner that school can occur the next day.
I'm not so concerned about the kids getting in and out as much as the gas line and power going in while people occupied in the building, that's.
Right, they're
that
not going to
was-
be working on it during school.
Okay.
A lot of it will be, yeah.
There's a lot of after school programs.
Are they gonna
They
spruce
were-
up the fields at all?
So they're gonna they have to redo the softball field because
Yeah,
they're putting a
that's
septic
the worst,
field
yeah.
under it. The town fields beyond are not actually on the school property, so they're not part of this project, although they're also town-owned.
The front drive, right now there's the school sign's right in the middle of dividing the the left and right, or pardon me, each direction. Is that still gonna be the case?
It just gets shifted, I'll get one of the laser printer. The current little island is right there,
Right.
so there is space for that. Right now, we've just made provisions for the town sign. I know
Yeah.
Chairman Perry went to the historic commission and talked about that, and we're get into the lighting of it, so we've just deferred that. But there is space for it.
No longer gonna be an island in the roadway, or talk?
Because it won't be an island anymore.
Got it.
Basically,
No, I think
the
that's a
curve has
better,
been shifted.
Design.
um,
Yeah. And right now, there's that little basketball court to the south.
Right, and that is still there.
Oh, it is there, okay.
Yeah, so we won't be touching that.
That's too bad. Well, terrific. And how many parking spaces are used by the employees of the school on a daily basis? It's always pretty tight in the
It's
morning.
always pretty tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at least this
It
should allow.
depends on the luncheons, and I think we fit about like 75 of them, considering like cafeteria.
So you're pretty much
workers and
maxed out now, so
janitors,
you're gonna
yeah.
provide them
Yeah.
a little bit of a,
But some of them are in
Extra.
and out because they were like part-timers and stuff, like the lunch people are out, and the recess monitors are in and out.
you showed the all-purpose room from the stage out.
Right.
What's happening in the stage,
We're redoing it all, so we're gonna actually replace the stage, lower it as a platform, so it can have ramp access, be handicap accessible,
Mhm.
but get rid of that lift, that person lift in the back.
Mhm.
We'll get a new projector, a new projection screen, a new back curtain, front curtain, and then we have a bid alternate to improve the acoustics, full sound system, and some
Lighting
additional curtains,
package.
and lighting, and some theatrical lighting in the bid alternate.
So Jane White got her
Yes.
lighting package.
Is the school the size gonna be good enough for the growth of
So
town? I'm
it's,
just wondering.
actually, the projected population and the agreed population with the MSBA is substantially less than the current population. And all, with the last year, I think it's gone to 3 grades per class. It used to be 4 grades per class, and so part of that site plan, that plan that Emily showed, we've taken the extra spaces, it's not so clear here, but basically what was a 4th classroom, and we've turned it into an open space, a small group room, and usually a sped staff room. So it's a shared amenity now that they're grouped by grades, so the grades could actually get together if there's a speaker or a guest, or it's spill-out space for a teacher, and then ultimately, if there should be a dramatic change in the demographics, a wall could be put back up, and it could be turned back into a classroom.
One thing that, and this, sorry for going off on a tangent, one thing I thought was really beneficial to this project as opposed to rebuilding, through the finance agency, based on projections, they were gonna say 65,000 square feet would be the
Right.
maximum they'd finance to build, but they'll allow us to build this, remodel this 90,000 square foot school
Right.
with their, so I mean, we're ending up with a new school bigger than we could have had if we built it from the ground up.
That is,
And they will guarantee they work for like 25 years, because our trucks are already needing to be repaired at the high school. So they'll
the
guarantee they'll
track.
work like he said.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really knows what our enrollment's gonna be in 20 years. It's just so hard to predict.
Right,
things to me.
right. But,
We are seeing growth, and I think we'll continue to see growth.
right, so that was sort of just, that was a nice perk to come out of that whole bid process, I
Yeah.
think we did better off remodeling in this case.
Yeah.
So it's terrific.
yeah.
Wonderful, well, I think, if no one else has any other comments, and I know that Larry's looked at everything, so from our perspective, we'll keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Plans are.
Thank you.
This is my husband, Les. Did I don't remember if you met, you introduced, we walked along by one time. She lives across from, my parents going out. Yes, I did. Right, Amy. Hi, nice to meet you. I met your wife when she used to go with the grandkids down near the street of Barnes, because I lived here before the campers and the other one behind me. But I was walking with the dogs, and we talked about, because I've had back surgery. I won't tell you, I just had cervical spinal surgery. So I'm on my 3rd back surgery. Yeah, right, we're talking about that, yeah. So, yeah, so now I just have to they're fine, well, those ones go on, it's a couple more back, that one's over here. See, I gotta start.
This is still used for personal reasons. This is,
So I wish I had been in the first for emergency, for a whole week, and then I was doing the doctor, so I didn't know that was.
oh, it is on there, okay. Boy, you really had to pack the house. Yeah, do what you can. In fact,
Just we're gonna make another release. We're gonna have everybody move forward.
have done in the past.
Bring in the They're doing well. One's in junior and high school. He's a football boy. And one's she's a sophomore. Hi. How are you? Good. This isn't fun for you.
I was there when Mr. Burke was like that. I'm so sorry. I love you.
That would probably do the job.
This is my husband.
This is my husband Gary.
Meeting's probably the best.
I know.
Sit down. All right, so thanks everyone for coming. It sounds like, looks like we got quite a bit of community interest in this. So, and with that being said, the way this is going to run, we're going to ask our petitioner to present the plan and have a discussion, and we're going to ask everyone who has any comments to make that comment. When you stand up, can you just identify yourself, because we're on TV, and we also keep a record of what's been said here. So just let us know who you are, where you live, and we'll do the best we can to answer your questions. All right, so what we have here is a continued public hearing for the site plan review for the large-scale solar photovoltaic facility at 623 Weathersfield Street, map 11, lot 53, in the outlying zoning district. And Rob, right?
Bob.
I'm sorry, sure.
Sorry. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for the record, Robert Blanchett, civil engineer, Cayman Engineering Amesbury, representing Raleigh Solar. So after our last meeting, we scheduled a site walk, which we had, and lots of abutters showed up. And during that time, we walked the center line of the proposed road as presented on the plans. I pointed out the major corners of the array, the centers of the stormwater basins. Some comments presented by neighbors included adding more screening, or different types of screening rather, as well as, relocating the equipment pad.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two major comments. Since our site walk, I've also had a site walk with the Conservation Commission, in which we've identified an additional resource area as defined by the Raleigh Wetland bylaw. It's an isolated vegetative wetland. I'll point all that out in just a minute on the screen behind me. The plans presented to you this evening, dated January 23rd, identify that isolated wetland, minor revisions to the solar array field to accommodate the wetland, identify additional screening, different type of screening, in other words, different species of tree, if you will, and a relocated equipment pad, a smaller and relocated equipment pad. So if you have, which one do you have up there? Oh, you can leave it here for now. Okay. So the isolated vegetative wetland is located in this corner right here. And it's identified, you'll see it on the next series of plans. Yeah. It's identified as Wetland Series M. We made some minor revisions to this field, solar field right here. We've made it smaller, pulling it away from the lot line to accommodate that resource area. So if you can flip to So as discussed earlier, the equipment pad, as you can see visually from the previous design, that equipment pad is significantly smaller. All right, previously it was 18 by 36. After consulting with the solar engineer, it's been reduced in size to 12 by 20. There was a shed, a maintenance shed, that's since been removed from the design. The intent is any maintenance equipment brought on site will be brought on via pickup truck or van and then taken off site when the equipment or when the repairs or maintenance are complete. So there's no need for a maintenance shed. There was a smaller ancillary pad off the larger pad, that's gone as well. So pads were made smaller, moved closer to the road. Screening's been added along that side of the equipment pad.
The solar panels themselves, there's no moving parts, they're not, they make no noise, they're not generating any
Correct.
sound.
That's right.
The transformer does emit.
The inverter.
Okay,
Yeah,
inverter.
so when you're within 3 feet of it, it has the same decibel rating as your refrigerator.
Okay.
Any further and the decibel rating drops off to 0. So
Gotcha. So-
essentially silent.
so-
If you're 10 feet away, it's silent.
So if I've ever heard that type of not appliance, but fixture making noise, that technology's evolved and that's no longer the case.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
In addition to additional screening along the equipment pad here, we've actually added additional screening along the fence line through here, as best we can to obscure the view from Weathersfield Street. So now the screening,
What's the distance between Weathersfield and that parallel line creating the front boundary of the array field?
from the edge of pavement to the first array,
Or roughly?
it's 85 feet.
85, okay, thank you.
So you can turn to the last page. Oh, I'm sorry, next one, excuse me, previous one. So previously, we had specified an arborvitae type of shrub. Evidently, deer like to eat arborvitae. I was unaware of that. So I believe I found a species of evergreen that deer do not like to eat. It's called the dwarf Colorado blue spruce. Grow about 10 feet tall, spaced 6 feet on center. Create a very nice visual barrier. This plant set also recognizes Mr. Graham's previous comments, not today's comments, his previous comments. And Mr. Graham, I received your comments today at about 2:30, so I've had a chance to read them. Haven't necessarily had a chance to really digest them yet, but we can talk about those in more detail if you like.
Good. So, I think at this point, I would like to ask our consultant to make his, add comments. Larry, if you, I know you went and looked at it just yesterday or Monday?
Monday,
Monday.
yeah.
Monday.
As the board knows, I was unable to attend the site walk last Saturday, so I went out this past Monday and walked it on my own by myself. And I had, first time I'd been out to the site on that particular side of the property. And my reaction to seeing the locations of the proposed array fields so close to a couple of the abutters to the east was not a very good reaction. And I felt that there was an opportunity on the site, or alternatives on the site, to perhaps relocate the access road and the array fields that would be less detrimental visually and environmentally to the abutting properties, primarily to the east. My letter is dated today's date. We didn't get it out until about 2:30 this afternoon. This project has been moving rather quickly, and we've turned it around as quick as we could, and the proponent's engineer has done a remarkable job in turning their parts of it around as well. But my letter is several pages long. However, the first item and the 9th item I'd like to perhaps go over with the board right now in a little more detail. And items 2 through 8 are detailed items, engineering things, which I think that I can discuss with the proponent's engineer, with Bob, later. But the first item, which takes up a couple of pages, is in writing what I was able, after I got the report out, to make a sketch of what that says. If you just pass those down.
Sure.
So it'll be a little bit easier to discuss it.
There's one right here for it.
Bob's got one.
Oh, sorry.
So,
If I could just,
yeah,
What if we can get the site plan up on the screen, so?
it's quite, this is probably too small for audience to see. You can try to
Yeah,
get this.
right.
so as much as I,
I could put it up there, I can scan it in really quick and.
Put it on the screen?
sure.
Yeah.
Good, so well, so as much as I think that we do need to think about what the alternatives are, could you just explain a little bit more about your observations of how this plan, what about it that seems to bother, well, yeah, for lack of a better word, yes.
Well, the easterlymost array fields, and I'm going to call them the first one closest to Weathersfield Street, and the second one, not necessarily the third because it's away, and the last one, that's the northeasterlymost field, were planned very close to the property line, somewhere in the order of 15 to 20 feet. And the only thing between the array fields and those properties, which are developed with dwellings and outbuildings, a barn, some fencing, some horses, the only thing between them was the proposed screening between the fence and the property line, which was fairly marginal as far as space, 3-4 feet. And I felt that if there was an alternative on the property where we could better that, that's what I would be recommending to the board. There really wasn't any problem that I saw with the access road until it got again back up in the northeasterly corner, and again that was proposed quite close to the property line. And as the board knows, I don't often look or review these projects and just say I don't recommend it, or I don't recommend it because of A, B, and C. I quite often come back to the board and suggest maybe there is an alternative, and maybe this is some way to look at an alternative. And so that's what I just passed out to the board, and I guess we're going to see it up on the screen here in a minute. And what it is a sort of a blend of the November submission that the proponent made and this most recent submission. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Thanks, Kirk.
Do we have a pointer? Okay. You can maybe be my pointer. So what I suggested was, if you go down to Weathersfield Street, Bob, and follow the blue line, the blue line on this plan might indicate a revised access road. The yellow is the position of the buildings which they proposed back in November. And the pink or the red there, showing the 3 fields, is what I suggested might be a better or alternative location for the array fields, while maintaining a setback from the wetlands buffer zones, keeping them clear as much as possible from them, and as well coming up with about the same area, 6 to 7 acres of array fields. So that's what that plan projects. So if you come in off of Weathersfield Street on the blue line, that is pretty much right on what they proposed in November for the access. You would drive that straight northerly, come around where they initially proposed the buildings, go almost due easterly, and then pick up their access road of the most current last revised plans. Take it for a short distance and then begin curving it again around to the east And that location, the access road, is actually in a saddle and behind a berm that exists between the property and Cassiotis, the abutter. And that berm could be used as natural screening. It could also be used to do some additional plantings. So it provides a greater offset between the property line and that array field. It provides some natural topography. The berm and some natural screening could be left there. It also somewhat honors the latest isolated wetland that Bob spoke of today. So it's going to push that array field out of that zone pretty much. Again, it looks to me like this is 6 or 7 acres, which is about what they had on both plans. It's not a lot more access road if you look at the comparison of the blue to the white lines that are on there, and it's pretty much out of the buffer zones. So that's number 1. And number 9 on my letter is really just says if there is a significant revision, which this might suggest, and the board feels that this is worthwhile, or another go-around from the applicant's engineer is worthwhile, we'll jump back on it and turn it around as soon as possible, because I understand the timeliness of the applicant to try to move this along for reasons that they discussed at the last hearing.
Good, no, thank you. And so at this point, I think it's appropriate, you're all here for a reason, so that we get some comment. And one thing, given what the applicant's presenting, I think we ought to first try to address what's being proposed by the applicant before we necessarily consider what Mr. Graham is proposing, because the applicant hasn't made that proposal. So let's not talk about what Larry would suggest, let's talk about what the applicant is proposing, if we can. So I'm going to, Rob, you first, would like to offer any comment to what Mr. Graham has provided?
Right now, the concern is all about timing.
Okay.
I'm afraid that those suggestions just cannot be accommodated in the time we have left.
Okay, so there's a feasibility issue, so we have to take that into account as we look at this.
Yeah, there's engineering time, review time.
Well, that's very troubling to hear you say that, because I looked at our review criteria for site plan review, and the first criterion, I'll read it from our zoning bylaw. Criterion is protection of adjoining premises and the neighborhood from detrimental impact resulting from the use of the subject property, including the creation of a nuisance by virtue of noise, odor, unsightliness, vibration, or light trespass. So that's a standard that we're dealing with, and frankly, if you're going to stick to your current proposal, I don't see how we can say that that standard has been met.
I don't see how we infract on any of those stipulations.
Well, I'll let the residents speak for it.
Sure. So, and that's what we're going to do. So why don't we get started with, who do we have here?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Adam Costa. I represent Greg and Sandra Cassiotis. Greg is here with me. You've heard their name referenced already tonight because they're maybe the most affected, or certainly among the most affected of the abutters. I have a correspondence for you. I apologize I wasn't able to get it to you in advance of tonight's meeting, but certainly you can take your time to review it. I've got multiple copies there for you.
Yeah, that's certainly a factor of the timeline we've been trying to, accommodate. So that's, I appreciate the fact that you're getting it to us as timely as you can.
Sure. So as I said, my name is Adam Costa. I'm with the firm Mead, Tellerman and Costa out of Newburyport. To give you a bit of information about my background so you know where I come from, I represent 15 communities, my firm does, so I often counsel boards like yours. I represent a number of other communities as special counsel, planning boards, zoning boards, boards of selectmen. I've represented communities on over a dozen solar projects throughout the Commonwealth, but I've also represented from time to time butters groups, neighbors, and even developers of solar facilities. So I've seen this sort of from both sides of the table. I understand the ins and outs, and I understand the challenges that solar developers face with respect to timing. First it was SREC 1, then it was SREC 2, now it's the SMART program. These various programs, all of which have various deadlines which are imposed by the state or by the federal government in order to qualify for financing incentives. So I understand the challenges there, but I also understand that I counsel the boards that I represent that you have a job to do. And your job is to apply your bylaw to the project that's before you. And I just heard some references made to your site plan review criteria. I began by reviewing those myself to see how this project complies or fails to comply with those criteria. The first concern I had when I reviewed what was provided is really the lack of what was provided to me. I've seen these again from both sides of the table. I've counseled developers on what they should prepare and provide to boards to seek approval for solar energy systems, and typically it is a substantial package. It is a variety of sheets to a plan, showing everything from the overall site plan proposal to grading, to details and the various components of the facility. Some of that's here, but I didn't see it all. I saw no narrative explaining the details of the facility, sizing of the facility. And when I reviewed closer the plans, I saw the lack of what the plans include, and I cited some of it beginning on the bottom of the first page of my letter. There were no setbacks that were indicated in certain locations on the version of the plans that I saw. I know that there is an updated version. I understand that that updated version was available at the recent site walk, so there may have been some additions made. But in the version I saw, setbacks, including many of the setbacks from my client's property, the closest of the properties, were not shown on the plan. There was no indication of the extent of clearing, no limit of clearing shown on the plans. The plans didn't include any buildings. I now see that a couple buildings or transformer locations have been identified. There was no indication where electrical lines were going to connect to the transformers. There were no details on the types of panels. There was no detail on the method of installation of the panels. There was no information on the operation and maintenance of the site. Usually there's an O&M plan that's provided, dealing with everything from stormwater to landscaping to emergency circumstances to potential bonding to ensure that in the event that there is decommissioning required in the future, that the town has those funds available. None of that was provided as part of this package. Those are the bare minimum of what I advise boards to require when they receive an application package for this sort of a facility. So I think that that ought to be the starting point for this board, to ask for that information so that it has the information it needs to fully vet the project. Now, once you have that information, you turn to the site plan review criteria, and sorry, you just referenced one of the several that are in your bylaw. I've actually quoted, you've got a series of them, I've quoted 5 of them in particular on the second page of my letter. Protection of adjoining premises and the neighborhood from detrimental impact resulting from the use of the subject property, including the creation of a nuisance by virtue of development of the project. Consistency of the proposed development with the character, scale, and design of surrounding buildings in the neighborhood. Adequacy of landscaping plans, including the use of natural land features, plantings, and screening material. Adequacy of measures proposed by the applicant to buffer or screen activities or structures shown in the site plan from nearby residential neighborhoods or residentially zoned areas. So these are the criteria that you are tasked with applying when you review a site plan such as the one that's before you. This site plan simply doesn't comply, and I think a perfect example of that, and I appreciate the work that Mr. Graham put into the alternate plan that's on the screen, the perfect example is the fact that there is an alternative available to you that clearly removes some of the impact, not all of it. My clients acknowledge that they are going to have some form of a solar energy system located in close proximity to their property. But there's a difference between a facility being located 15, 16, 17 feet from a property boundary and being located in the areas shown or shaded in pink on that screen, where there's nothing located on the westerly side of their property, and on the northerly side of their property there's a much greater setback with something like a berm, something like additional landscaping that helps buffer the impact of this kind of a project on their property and on their property value. They are surrounded on 2 sides, or will be surrounded on 2 sides by this project. It's going to be no doubt a substantial impact to their property. I propose, and it takes up the better part of the 3rd page of my letter and about half of the 4th page of my letter, what I consider to be certain conditions that would be required if this board saw fit to approve the project in any iteration, as a minimum, to protect my clients and their property interest and their property value. These are the sorts of things, frankly, that I've seen most every project comply with when they're presented to boards that I've represented. Things like a minimum of a 50-foot setback from property boundaries. I've seen many boards that have required 75 or 100-foot setbacks. Here, as I said before, in the locations where the setback is marked, I see setbacks anywhere from 15 to 17 feet from the property boundary. That there are many communities that require greater setbacks for single-family homes from side yards. So the idea that a 17-foot setback for a solar facility from an adjacent residential property would be sufficient just doesn't pass muster. The idea that in the event that there's going to be fencing around the property, and there should be for safety purposes, that there be some openings in that fencing to allow for the passage of wildlife. Typically these sorts of projects require a MISA filing so that the Natural Heritage and Endangered Species Program can ensure that it's not going to have an adverse effect on wildlife habitat and the routes that the wildlife take when they migrate. It's important to ensure that that can occur on a site of this sort, and usually an HESP is going to require that there be some breaks in the fence to allow that to occur. Things like limitation on work hours, those are important conditions for these sorts of projects, particularly during the construction phase when there's constant traffic going to and from the site for the installation of these panels. Landscaping details, screening details. Depending on the proximity of the project to the abutter's properties, and this goes not only for my client but for any other abutter, there needs to be consideration for a requirement of a hold harmless indemnification. I've heard horror stories of properties being developed with these sorts of facilities in areas that are currently wooded, forested, as this site is, and often the adjacent sites are a continuation of that forest. As panels get constructed and then trees fall from adjacent properties onto the panels causing damage, and guess who gets sued? The neighbor.
Your client brought that issue up at the sidewalk.
Right, so that's a concern, and there are ways that boards can condition projects to require that the applicant have appropriate insurance or provide a hold harmless indemnification to be sure that the neighbors aren't bearing the burden of the developer's solar project. I'm not going to take more than my fair share of time. I know you've got a room full of neighbors here. You've got 2 more pages of proposed conditions here. I'll hope you take the time to read them, to consider them. This is a sizable project for any community, let alone a small community like Raleigh. And I would hope that the board members will give this applicant in the application the time that it deserves, the review that it deserves. And I respect the fact, again, that the applicant is under certain time constraints, but that shouldn't be a basis for backing the board into a corner and saying, you've got to take action immediately, you can't consider any alternatives, you can't defer to the good advice from your consultant because we're up against the deadline. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. You speak for the crowd, it seems like. We can yes, please.
Hi. My name is Joyce Ernstrom, and we know Greg, and we have concerns for his issues. However, what you just did put the road in my backyard. I live on Forest Street. So, the size of this project seems enormous when you put it in the middle of a residential section. It's bound all the way around by houses, and it's an industrial site. It's, I guess in my naiveness, I said, oh, solar panels, no big deal. You know, they're gonna put some glass down and that's, but then when I started to understand what it meant, it's enormous, it's industrial, it has, as you are pointing out, buildings and pipes and this and that, and it's, no matter, it seems like no matter where you put it, it's going to affect some abutter seriously. And while I'm glad it helps Greg, as I said, it just didn't help Forest Street.
Where is your house exactly?
Forest Street is directly behind the Berkowitzes.
Can you give your address?
15 Forest Street. When the neighbors went on the sidewalk, they actually took a photo from the corner of the array, and you could see my skylight, the roof. So it was already a bit of a concern before. When I talked to the Conservation Committee yesterday, they said, well, you're going to be a distance away because we've revised the plan, and now you've unrevised it. So Forest Street is again an issue.
Thank you.
We haven't unrevised it yet.
Yeah,
Okay,
and in
good.
fact, no one's, other than our consultant, has put that proposal
There may be
forward.
another alternative.
Yes. So who else can I call on? Mr. Sir in the back?
Hi, my name is Jack Fritzen, and from Essex Tech, and I am in the environmental technology program. And I study the impacts that humans have on ecosystems. And I did a little bit of research, and I found that as a kid, I have found certain creatures in the back, like the yellow-spotted salamander, which is an endangered species. So if you're going to build on top of an endangered species habitat, that kind of illegal.
Sure. Well, we do take those factors into consideration, and that doesn't end with this board necessarily.
Yeah.
And we're aware that there are some protected species back there. I don't think. Rob,
As of August 1, 2017, the National Heritage and Endangered Species Program mapping book, it's literally a book, recognizes no endangered species on this site.
Okay.
It doesn't mean they're not there, it just means they haven't been recognized. And if they haven't been recognized, that's the end of our trail. We stop at the book, DEP is satisfied, so we're good to go.
good. Who else do we have, sir?
Bob Herrick, 636 Weathersfield. Just a quick question. Is this going to be a business in a residential area?
Well, it is a permitted use in the outlying district. To call it a business, I mean, it is organized as an LLC, but there's no ongoing business activity there. It's a passive business. That being said, I think it could largely be characterized as commercial use. However, it is a use permitted in the outlying district.
So everybody that abuts his property now is gonna be given carte blanche to operate a business if it's?
No, you still have the same rights that everybody else in the outlying district has, which includes a solar array.
It'll be personal use, which is
Yeah,
net
this would be
metering.
Personal use.
Excuse me?
Right, net metering, that's what they're doing. They're selling off.
That's
They don't
right.
use.
That's right.
That's a business.
I just said that the use, it doesn't mean we're classifying the outlying district as a commercial zoning district. It's a permitted use within the outlying district. Who else do we have? Please.
I'm Tammy Graves, I'm 624 Weathersfield Street. I'm sure everybody remembers me from last night. I tend to get a little emotional, I've been praying all day that I don't, because there's a couple of things, just to say. A couple of things, just listening to you guys and you. A couple of phrases like rather quickly. Personally, I don't understand why this has to happen rather quickly, because I can tell that all of us abutters received letters when this all happened, but.
Excuse me, I did not receive a letter, we
Okay.
did not.
I didn't get a letter.
But
I just want to
no one.
sorry, hey, how you doing? We spoke earlier today. We first heard about this yesterday from a flyer from someone left in the mailbox.
And the thing is that that's one of the problems I have. No one in this town is aware of this, except for the few hand-picked people that got these letters from the town. And to me, Weathersfield Street, it goes from Ipswich to Georgetown. And people drive up and down that street every day. So even though, it's going to affect me greatly, it's going to affect all my neighbors greatly, but I don't think people realize that driving up and down that street on Weathersfield Street, this is going to be what you see. And it floors me for some people to say that you have met the requirements of whatever's proposed, because to be honest with you, it's going to diminish my property value greatly. If you could hop up to that first screen you had, do you mind? And the new proposed one affects me even worse. And so, it's like Weathersfield Street's right here. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Weathersfield Street's here, so this was the original one. So the blue one, yay, is right in front of my driveway. And it's, like I was saying last night, do I want to go out of my house every day and be faced with solar panels? And what is that going to do to the value of my home? I can tell you what it's going to do to the value of my home.
Have you seen the solar panels that are in Raleigh now?
I have, but you know what about those? They sit way back, and
That's
they
correct.
don't hang out in anyone's front of their house.
And
I did the
we
walk
would-
on Saturday. I did the walk on Saturday, and I saw the first set of arrays, and as I was standing on the first set of arrays, there's my house in clear view of that. And it's hard for anyone here, anybody, with the exception of myself, the Burns, and the other neighbors, to voice a fair opinion about this when you don't have to worry about it being in your front door.
Believe me, we take that into consideration, and that's why the panels were considered over on Central Street.
My question is why, and I said this last night, I'm not against progress, and I'm not against these people making money for themselves, but does it have to be at the detriment to other people? And that's what's going to happen. It's going to be the detriment of my property greatly. But how do you walk out your door and see it every day? You won't have to do that.
I would not let that happen to your property, ma'am.
Yes, you are.
But that, see, one thing, just because we've mentioned that we're balancing the interests of the landowner applicant, and
that's what I'm trying to do too.
That's all. So we're giving everyone a fair
Right.
opportunity
So my
to
question
air
is
the.
this.
But we're not. I don't feel as though you know which way the scale's going.
No, I'm
because
not.
I
But
think you do. I think
okay, so this is my question, and this is what I want to ask. Like, who do I go to, or where do I go to get respect for myself as a homeowner?
This board.
Right here.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Because the other thing is that I appreciate, you know, it's their private property. Make all the money you want to make. But I feel like the people surrounding it should give the respect. And I feel like when I stand here and the new proposed one is even worse for myself personally because it's right in my driveway.
Well, the panels would be further away.
Yeah, but you know what, you say 95 feet, like the first array 95 feet, but like I said, when I stood there at the 95 feet, I have clear view of everything. And if they're gonna clear 7 to 8 acres of land, and I don't care what evergreen you build or what, that's still gonna be a visible thing to me. And if I remember correctly, and I could be saying this wrong, when this original project happened and we received our first drawing, we were told that if you stand on Weathersfield, I mean, if you go into here, and there's all kind of beautiful, natural stone walls going both ways. We were told that the first set of arrays would be over and beyond that.
That's true.
When I called someone on the planning board, I don't know who I spoke to, when my first letter came out, and I said, do I need to be worried about this? As a homeowner on 624 Weather Street, do I need to be worried about this? Do I worry about looking out of my front of my house and seeing this? And he said, absolutely not. You might get a glimpse of it in the winter, but you're not going to see this. But that was with the original. But then all of a sudden, we have all this massiveness that's happened, and whether we're
Well, that was a surprise to us too.
but whether you're looking at the massiveness here or the massiveness there, it's still there. It's still there, and it's massive. And I guess my question is there no way that this can happen to make these guys make their money and be happy, but on a smaller scale, so that it's not affecting so many people? And for people to be able to drive down Weathersfield Street and not even realize that there's all this metal and all this stuff going on.
I don't think people on Weathersfield Street, if we approve this, and frankly with what we've heard tonight from the applicant, I don't think we are going to approve this. But if we were to approve something, I think the impact from people driving on Weathersfield Street will be pretty minor. And we'll make sure that it's pretty minor.
I mean, and I want it to be minor for myself, and I want it to be minor for the Burns family that lives right beside me. And that's all I'm asking.
Have you seen the one driving down Central Street?
I can see it because I know where it is, and I'm looking for it personally because it's behind Country Gardens. But there again, it's also not sitting in my front
No,
door.
we would not approve something sitting in your front door.
Okay, well,
Well,
okay.
it's gonna be a narrow gravel access
Well,
drive.
that's the other thing too, I had asked last night too with the driveway, because we had discussed the driveway, and I'm sorry I misquoted the link for the driveway last night. But like the driveway, if these people are wanting so bad to do this, and you were saying last night their personal driveway is a personal driveway, but I mean, at this point, I don't really care. Use your own driveway to do this stuff. And if you have to build your own driveway up to be able to do this stuff back behind an area so that I don't have to look at it, then do that. But then why do you have to build this huge driveway and put it in front of my driveway? It's, you know, that's another thing. And
We are absolutely taking everything you say into consideration, and the fact that you haven't heard, well, I think Mr. Pierce just gave the most we've said so far on where we're at, but, you know, so let's just see how things unfold.
can I just say one thing? I'm sorry. My daughter, who is a avid wildlife person and is pursuing that school, she lives in Pennsylvania, but she grew up on 624 Edgefield Street. She told me to read this. It doesn't have anything to do with the planning board. I'm sorry. It's a conservation thing, but I didn't have it last night. But she said, I just want them to know that they're ruining the street by doing this. And it's rare nowadays to find somewhere like Raleigh where you can live among so much nature and wildlife and land that they take away shelter from numerous species by doing this, and they leave them susceptible to so much more than we're unaware of. And that she wished that people would listen because they're going to regret ruining such a beautiful piece of property.
Thank you. I noticed you had a comment.
I do. My name is Diana Fritzen, and I live at 21 Forest Street. And so now the new proposed Rayfield here.
You know what? It's not proposed. So
Okay.
don't comment on that, because that's just a suggestion from one person. The
Okay.
applicant has not put it on a plan.
Okay.
We're really not here to comment on that.
All right.
But that's okay, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. I just don't
Okay.
think you're, you know, to put time on that, it's not really out there.
Okay, well, just to say quickly, because now with Forest Street, we're on a hill, and now that what this is being proposed is in a lower land. So glare trespass, exactly where we are, because they're gonna be facing south, which is where we're going to be. The glare from these is gonna be horrific for those on Forest Street.
And I could.
Please, yeah.
As far back as they were, when they were digging, I could see them from my kitchen window, digging. And I said to myself then, uh-oh.
No,
And
one thing I will say though is, our objective is not to make sure you never see anything new in front of your window. That being said, we're here to make sure that we don't allow something that,
But I don't want to see a chain link fence instead
that
of
would be
5
unsightly,
wire.
and that is something we are concerned about. Sir?
My name's Dan White from 634
Blake?
Weathersfield Street. White, Dan
What?
White, from 634 Weathersfield Street. I just found out about this yesterday. We received no notices. We're number 3 on the abutter list. Haven't received anything from anybody, so I don't know what the story is with that. So I wasn't at the meeting January 10th, I think. So I have 2 questions. One question, what is the timeline? Why is this a rush job?
There is no rush job on this board,
Fair enough,
okay?
but
We
there's
do
a-
things through the ordinary
Right.
process.
He's not
Nonetheless, we
considering-
have had a request from the applicant to attempt to do our due diligence in a slightly more expedited fashion. That's why we're holding a second meeting, okay? But that doesn't mean we're, you know,
Fair enough, but
carrying
he's
that
not
water.
willing to consider the new plan, so why, so could you, perhaps she can answer, what timeline, what deadlines are we working with here?
I defer to the applicant. The applicant's working with the Department of Energy and another federal group. I honestly don't know the name of the group, and there's a timeline to get into the particular program that's at hand. I'll let the applicant speak to that.
Ms. Berkowitz, you want to address that, or?
I think Mr. Blanchett explained.
Yeah. What was related to us at the last meeting, so it is part of the record, is that if they could get this approved by the end of the month, they will meet their deadlines.
End of January.
That's correct. Okay, so So we said, you know what?
January 24th.
We will, look at your new site. The first thing we did was a site review, and I think that shone a lot of light on what we're dealing with, and here we are at this meeting.
So I have one additional question about the screening. So you had to switch to a different shrub. Have you used this shrub anywhere else? Do we know it, how's it? Do we know
I have a
how
Colorado
effective
blue spruce in my front yard that's done very well.
It's done well
with
in
the
this
deer.
area?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the deer won't eat them, but
spruces need full sunlight, so that was the one question I had.
Yes, I mean, it's a change. Is it effective for this type of job? If that's not what he normally uses, I'm curious about that.
It's a great tree. It's beautiful. Looks like a Christmas tree.
But it's not gonna grow in the middle of the woods, because there's just not enough sunlight.
Right.
It'll be on the fringe.
Yeah, well,
So
Well,
when it's,
but there's gonna be trees all,
I mean, I
there'll
don't know,
be
you might,
forest around it.
if we get to the point of even considering landscaping, you might wanna think about white pines.
white pine.
I would have a problem with one type of tree being
Yeah.
used in a consistent manner, because does it look natural then? No.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
we need a variety of.
Right.
My only fear
Then
with
the
white
tail
pines
lapse.
is
But-
the height.
They grow fast.
Well, okay.
No?
Forever.
Yeah.
Sir?
645 Jeff Dolan, I have bought the property as well. I've lived there since 1983, and I haven't heard anybody, and I didn't find out about this till this was in my mailbox today, missing last night's meeting. If you look at the area itself, which you've done site walks, over the years, right across from that lady's house, you always see water collecting right in there, abutting, it comes down. Okay, we don't have any public surge, we don't have a lot of drainage down that area. In my case, I have everybody abutting me all across the street with 125, 130 foot, 40-year-old pines. I don't get any sun at all. My house in 2015 had snow in the front yard, one of the only houses on the street. But I'm kitty corner to the quote their backyard. Over the years, and I personally experienced this in 2012, 3 of these bull pines come down on my house. All of that land back there, because the water collects on and off, is degrading. It's her woods, it's my woods. These trees are constantly falling over, constantly.
I brought that up, yes. You showed it.
And I don't know, by this picture, my house would be, you had the Cochrane Trust, and that was kind of where my house technically should be. They should have been over a little bit more, and there's a curve to the road. Looking at this and seeing the way, with all the building in that neighborhood, the way the whole neighborhood's starting to sink in over the years, I would never, if I was in a butter, in one of these trees that, I assumed I couldn't cut down because I was abutting wetlands, because it's always wet down there, there's gullets. That if one of these trees fell and hit her property, from any of us, that's some serious cake that we'd have to shell out, that we had no.
I think the point that Mr. Cullen, Costa brought up, is something we would consider if we were to be in that situation. If we were closer to an approval on a plan that we could get behind, we would be considering things about indemnification by the applicant for that type of loss. So,
Can I speak?
please.
Okay, my name's Richard Burns, I live at 620 Weathersfield Street, and I guess it's going, with my driveway is straight in with the road in. But under the laws, I think you know about them, the zoning laws, chapter 48, section 3. Has anybody ever read that?
I have.
Okay, it's in reference to what they can do and cannot do. Let me just read it. I have 3 pages long, but I won't get into it. I'll read a section of it, very short. No zoning ordinance or bylaw shall prohibit unreasonable regulations, the installation of solar energy systems, or the building of structures that facilitate the collection of solar energy, except where necessary to protect the public safety, health, and welfare. Okay, it's right here. Well, I'm considering my health and welfare and safety. I have the big pines, 115, 120 footers. and they're in a wetland area, and if they strip in the front, any of this here, I lose the berm. That's where the nor'easters come, right down towards me. And when they do come down, all my trees are gonna come down. In the back, when they did the country club, I tried to notify them about it, lost the berms, I have pines coming down in the back. Tompkins used to own the land on the, beside me. He had the pines thinned out and some of the hardwood. When he did that, they started coming down on that side. Now, when I get the nor'easters, all the trees in front of me and beside me, I know are going to start coming down. And I fear most for the Grays, because they have some big pines near the side of their house that will definitely get hit. It is a safety issue, and I hope the planning board takes this under advisement. I really appreciate it for the safety of the wife and myself and my family.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. You didn't know
When
we walked
where it's going in.
Mr. Cassiotis' land, we saw quite a bit of
So they
blowdown
have-
on his.
They have to strip it. They have to strip down in the front for the for the sun. And,
Sure.
so,
Another consideration.
appreciate it.
Anyone else want to have any comment? Please, come on in.
Come on in.
Apologize for the tight space. We usually don't have such an audience.
That's okay. Well, that is a problem, I feel, as it is, that you don't have room for the people who want to hear what's going on. We have bigger rooms in this town, I know, because I've been to other meetings. And that's something I think should be considered if we have more meetings considering this. My name is Louise DeMella. I live on Leslie Road, so I'm not directly affected by this in any way, shape, or form. But I am affected by the fact that Raleigh is my town. I have been here for 30 years. I have been involved actively in the school and raising funds in the church and different projects that have been done through this town. I have also been on the receiving end of promises that were given to me by contractors, developers, and the town, which have not been carried through. So at the very least, I want to suggest that if this continues and you're going to have more meetings, that the proper announcement be given to the people who live in this town and not just abutters who have to be notified for legal reasons. You as the planning board are representatives of the town. And I think to find this out on Facebook, for other people who are close to this area to find out because they get a slip, is not okay. You are our representatives. And we expect you to at least the people in Raleigh, no matter where they are, no matter what the project, that they be informed. You have to have a correct information, a basis of information, in order for anyone to make a decision. In order for other people to perhaps come up with ideas or to form a way in which both sides can win. Raleigh is a developing town. It's a hell of a lot different now than it was when I first came, and I was the last house on Leslie Road. I get it. We are growing. All towns grow eventually. But people come to this town for a reason. They come here because of the old-fashioned feeling. They come here because of its reputation. I could have lived in Ipswich and had my garbage collected, but that's the point, is that I came here because of what Raleigh is, because of the closeness of this town, and I've worked with the board, and I've worked very closely with the police department. This, to me, was a very sad way of approaching this. I think the whole town should be aware of it. I think...
I will, listen, we're not here to really talk about procedure,
But it may
I will say this,
continue.
though, because it does seem like you're addressing this towards the board as if it's a process we're not adhering to. We comply with state law in every regard. Every abutter was notified, at least was ordered to be notified, and he has to, and it's the applicant's obligation to provide green slips showing that those people were notified. So we have some check and balance to make sure that happens. We didn't have to send out a second notice when they changed the decision, but nonetheless, we thought it was prudent to do that. And everyone in town, as much as it does seem like a burden, we post on the website every single week what our agenda is and what issues are here. So, there is a little bit of apathy in this town. This is usually, let's just say, how many people are here? 50. This is about 50 times more people than we usually have for a meeting. So it's great that people got out for this. But every week we deal with these issues, and
there were 2 newspaper notices as well. And
yeah.
Which reminds me, are they here by any chance?
No.
Can I just point out with there was a reason for, and I did talk to Mr. White about the legal ad, that was your address with the assessor's office, and
Yeah.
he's going to call tomorrow and find out, but
Yeah, what's
it
going-
actually linked to an address in Virginia, which he didn't recognize the
No,
address.
the
but
mortgage,
that-
it's where the tax bill goes.
Yeah, but that's-
I have a mortgage, so because I have a mortgage, I'm not gonna get
Yeah,
notified?
so but that is the thing, so I
So
recommend.
that is I don't, maybe the mortgage company has something to do with that, but the tax assessor maintains the records we
But
rely
that's
on.
not a good system, because you're,
Yeah.
I'm
No, it's a great
64
system. However, somehow, your mortgage company got put on there as the taxpayer because they're
Yeah.
paying your tax bill, and that's not supposed to be the way, and it's the first time I've ever heard that, and I deal in that industry.
So I did not receive my 14 days notice.
Yeah.
At all.
You didn't
So-
actually, yeah, but that's my point, is that is one
But you
thing
found it out, right.
to be aware of, that if we have the wrong address for whatever reason,
Yeah.
it's going to go to that address, and we can't know everybody's address just right. So if you have any questions.
I mean,
check-
somebody registered the bank as as the person responsible for the taxes.
Sure.
Frankly, that's something that, you haven't gotten a tax bill, I assume, since you've been
Oh,
there.
but I pay my taxes, the taxes get paid. Yeah.
But I still get a tax bill, even though my mortgage company's paying my taxes.
Yeah, no,
Something
fine.
happened
Yeah.
relative to your taxes, clear that up, but.
Well, I'm gonna try to, but also, can you just make a note, make sure,
Yeah.
in the meantime, if there's any other notices, could you?
Yeah.
make sure?
And as much as we're still very much interested in what you all have to say, I want to move on from the process.
And just it did run twice in the
Correct.
town
Right.
common the 2 Wednesdays prior.
Really, so I missed that.
And we're on TV.
And we're on TV.
That's how I found it.
So, who else do we have? Please.
Hi, Drew Dagelmeyer. I live at 591 with my wife, Sarah Bajer. Feeling pretty claustrophobic with these lines here. But I'm very confused as to how we are in a residential area and you're getting a commercial power plant put right in the middle of it when we have commercially zoned areas like the old mobile station. You can put them on roofs, in the TJ Maxx building or Ipswich glass there. Also concerned about the heavy trucking that's going to be coming in and out of here while we're trying to walk down the street, walk our dogs. You said there's a small access road, but can you remind me of the width on this access road?
It's 16 feet wide.
Okay.
And I certainly don't speak for the applicant, but we did ask that question, and they anticipate one trip per week. So,
After it's
after it's constructed, and they expect a 2-month construction,
Why do I see
Schedule?
54 feet on that?
54 foot wide?
Yeah.
You're misreading it.
There's areas
No, that
where
was
not.
what he had originally
That's
told
a-
us to
that's-
walk through.
That's the clearing.
That's a clearing,
Yeah.
that's the whole
Yeah.
cleared width in order to
The
accommodate the
little
roadway.
teeny road is like this, but it's actually like this, when you
The
think of the
opening.
gravel, the things that have to
Sure.
go with it.
I mean,
So it's more of like a 50-something foot driveway, not a 16-foot road.
We look at this.
Yeah.
We'll be looking
We'll be able to, if we get there.
right.
There's also someone spoke about the noise potential. There's,
I mentioned that, yeah.
Was Edgartown referenced at all?
No.
Edgartown had like a 5.5 acre array put in, and they were told that it was going to be no noise whatsoever, but sure enough, everybody could hear it. And it was loud enough that it violated local laws about noise problems. So, that's a concern.
Mhm.
And also, how many inverters are going to be going in on this site?
That has not been determined yet.
Okay. So, those all emit electromagnetic radiation, which has been classified as a 2B carcinogen by the World Health Organization. So, we're also concerned about that.
And, as much as he mentioned that there's very low decibel level emitted from this, we would condition it to be in line with what he proposes, so that if what ends up going in there exceeded that decibel level, then he'd be in violation of the order. But the applicant would be in violation of that order. But just because I use the word if we approve this project, doesn't mean that's where we're necessarily headed. Who else do we have? Mr. Costa?
I'm just gonna wrap up since I'm being paid to be here.
Yeah.
I might as well get his money's worth, right?
Great host.
So I just want to remind you again, as we sort of wrap up the public comment portion of the meeting, that this is a site plan review process, and that process is a creature of municipal governance. Site plan review is not referenced in the zoning act, it's not like the special permit process, it's not like the variance process. Municipalities themselves dictate the process for site plan review and approval. And your bylaw says 65 days to open a public hearing, and then 90 days from the close of the public hearing to render a decision. So just a reminder, you've got an open-ended process. So long as you're continuing to make progress, you're continuing to seek information from the applicant, you're continuing to review that information through your consultant. I've had boards keep their process open for 90 days. I've had boards keep their process open for a year and a half when that is warranted by the information that is still incoming.
Yes, but if the applicant is unwilling to discuss alternatives, then I can't see any reason to keep this going.
If you have all the information you need, I would agree entirely. I think that even without alternatives on the table, there's still information, the sort of information I suggested needs to be added to the plans in my letter. The analysis that needs to occur pursuant to the 6 or 7 criteria for site plan review, all of that has to occur before this board is ready to close the public hearing, let alone deliberate during a 90-day period after the public hearing on a decision. So I just caution you to please give this project the time that it deserves. It's a substantial project for the town of Berkeley, as you know. Thank
I
you.
had a quick question for you. You mentioned the radiation from inverters or whatever. I mean, this is your industry. What is that about?
So there's been an issue with all sorts of green technologies. Issues arose first with wind turbines, and then following wind turbines came these solar arrays. There are studies that suggest that there are no adverse health impacts. There are studies that suggest that there are adverse health impacts. Unfortunately, the reality is because these greener technologies are so new in the United States and certainly in the Northeast, many of the studies that have occurred over lengthy periods of time when you can actually register the potential damage and the adverse impacts, they're either non-existent or they're from overseas where some of these technologies have been in existence for longer periods of time.
Can't they walk around and measure? Do they have something like when it's in a full sunny day, could they walk? I don't know.
I don't think it's quite that simple with respect to the inverters.
Anyone else have any comment on this? Bobby, anything you want to, I mean, you've heard some of the suggestions, and at this point, Mr. Graham did put some proposals towards you. Is that something that we might expect you to consider adopting as an option?
And you can take your time, if you want to think about it.
I think what we'd like to do at this point is, I have nothing further to add. What I'd like to do is request we continue to the next public hearing, give applicant time to digest all of this and figure out where we're going to go with it.
And listen to what the neighbors have,
of course,
said.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion to continue to our next hearing. I'm not sure when that is, the next meeting.
Well, the next meeting is February 7th. We have, because we moved it up, it would have been 14th, but I think.
I am traveling that day.
Yeah, so we moved it to the 7th.
So-
We have a public hearing on that day at 8 o'clock, plus some of the continued items.
What's the public hearing?
That's going to be for the 50 Newberry Road. There's another OSRD.
I read that in the town comment today.
Oh, yeah.
So we will,
So I'll move we continue to February 7 at 7:30.
Second.
all in favor?
I don't know at 7:30 if you've got something at 8 o'clock.
Well,
We can always.
you never know how
Stick it all
long
around
these
it.
things are gonna go, you know.
Okay. I don't know about 4.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Will we be are we gonna be notified of these?
No, that's the date, we'll be here.
Yeah.
We'll see, if anything comes in, that's what we'll be discussing.
Is it somebody that is a spokesman for the neighborhood? Okay.
No, oh no. Their spokesperson, trust me.
Serving coffee at the meetings?
I just have a quick question. Last night, the majority of us were at the conservation meeting, and they had told us that they were going to have a meeting, I believe it was January 30th.
Oh,
So that's my question. My question is, do we all need to be at the conservation meeting on January 30th or what? How will we know if we need to be there or not?
They're waiting to hear from you.
Well,
I think the thing is, I don't work for the Conservation Board, so I could say that he's as the applicant, he'll tell you what their next hearing date might be.
Right, so once I have a chance to meet with the applicant and discuss what we're going to do with this project, we'll contact the Conservation Commission, let them know that, or we either need to continue, in which case they'll post the continuance on their website and their agenda. You won't necessarily get notified again. You'll need to watch the website and pay attention to the agenda in order to realize that the meeting's been continued.
But I could always just call them and
Or,
say, is there
yeah,
gonna
or call Brent.
be
Absolutely.
reason for us to be at this meeting?
You can always call Kirk and see if anything new's been submitted, if there's any changes in the plan. Same with Conservation, they have,
Hey, last night, everything we said, they're like, planning board, planning board, so.
what did they, is there anything they shifted onto our plate that we haven't addressed today?
Everything we started to say, they were
right
on.
They were right on. Okay, good. Well, thank you all, and we're absolutely listening to what you have to say. We are also, like I said, balancing the interests of the applicant, but, you know, I think, you know, particularly what was on the board today has an enormous impact specifically on one of the folks, and I know it has an impact on our front row people here today as well as other people in the room, so we are paying attention.
We appreciate it.
How's your brother?
Thank you.
My brother's fine. Stephen is Stephen. We'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
He's a great guy.
I know he is, of course he is.
Is there any chance we have another copy of the multiple copies here?
That's those are spares. You may have that back if you want to grab that.
There you go, right here.
You know what? She's a resident too.
If I want, I can give them a bunch of
Right. What was your mother-in-law's name? They weren't quite as nice. Florence, right. Okay. Yeah, they were roommates.
50 years
Yeah. Just want to say thank you. Visited at the same time.
I will try to figure it out. I think I'm going to lose my tax.
Oh, I've been here for about 30 years.
You know, thank you. That's
Now, that whole thing with like, state mandated.
Yeah, now, fortunately for me, the town law is residential is Boston. There's going to be some
I'm sure they pick one up. Residential area or as long as it meets, almost have like town.
next to the Girl Scout property, this guy's a developer looking at that. And we've talked to him informally.
You should get that guy.
I know, really.
He seems to like.
I'm only just going to be a residential.
Yeah, he's asking questions, you don't have to.
I almost addressed that, but I think we have too much to go on here to tell you.
I wanted to make it
That wouldn't have worked too, I don't think.
I turned for some help. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I know, it's like, how come they did one? And then And if the answer is because of state, whatever that's funded, whatever that thing is, keep that line up while you're doing the money.
SREC 2 probably has a time limit.
Yeah, it makes sense, it makes sense.
So, well, yeah, right?
Yeah,
And, you know, I still defend the idea that, had we had no community objection, and you had a viable plan, which, you know, I'm not saying you don't, we could have still worked with you to get you over that hurdle, but when you see a lot of reason now, we have to slow it down, you know, minimally, that's, you know, that's, I think, if anything, that's what we can tell you, you gotta slow it down.
I would get the directives.
I don't know,
You're welcome.
Yep.
Seriously, how come this can't be in a room where you have, people can't hear what's being said?
I'll be honest, we were speaking about that before the meeting when everyone showed up.
Excellent.
Okay, but then
If you knew there was 50 people coming, we would have had trouble finding another one.
Why can't, I mean, the town hall has rooms upstairs, I mean, there's rooms everywhere in this town.
So we had no idea we'd get this kind of audience today. We just, I asked them, why don't we ever use the town, this committee meeting upstairs at town hall? Put 6 people around the table in that enormous room and you can't hear anything.
So the next meeting's gonna be in a bigger room?
Well, not the February.
We don't,
I've already advertised.
we're not even sure this is going to actually be on the agenda
Right,
for that hearing. Okay?
And I do understand that.
Typically, the size of the crowd goes down with each.
You know what I think is happening? You have new families coming in, young families, but what you have is a lot of us that have been here a very long time. And I think we think of it as our town.
Who's been here the longest?
When huh?
You've been here?
Probably almost 30 years.
Oh, no, I beat
Hey,
you.
listen, hey, 50 years, all right?
I don't beat you.
50 years, I'm the king here.
I wasn't born here. But I think people care about their town. I think that that's a really positive thing for a board to understand. You have a lot of people who really love this town and are involved in this town. And they need to spend, they need to know about it. I've been to a lot of them, but I tell you, I won't stand out here for an hour and a half. I've been on a lot of boards. And I have too, and not boards, but I've done other things that I've been involved in. But, you know what?
You get all those names and addresses?
Well, I got the names, I didn't get the
I made a point of
addresses.
writing the address.
Huh?
I made a point of writing the address because I was trying to see if there was anybody
my account keeps telling me
stiff on the notice.
Oh, yeah.
It seemed like there was only 2 that were really.
See, this doesn't, like I say, affect me, but this is my town, so it affects me. This is the place, my kids have grown up, they love this town.
Take care of that, thank you.
She's in Ohio, but, yeah.
So, we actually have some minutes we gotta take care of, so
I'll let you take care of it.
appreciate your comment, and thank you for,
They're bringing that money back in.
so keep an eye on the website, okay?
If you sell it.
Yeah, we,
What I'm saying is it goes up, but then at the dividend jump.
Well, see if they migrate out. I doubt that microphone's gonna pick up anything with all this crowd. You can shut the door. Yeah. Oh, it's right there.
When it jumps,
Could you please just,
when it jumps up,
shut it.
it gives the whole bring the money back in, it does. It goes like 220, like it's all half.
That's right.
I'm not either.
Just a closed door section.
I thought,
Unless something changes.
I thought we'll look at GD, because that's a hurt. It's hurt.
That's right. All right, so,
Gotta watch out with this.
Cindy Lane, Kurt, tell us what's going on there.
Well, you know, they had applied or requested for a reduction. John did look at the, reviewed the request. He said actually he went back out there was actually some missing sidewalks, missing plantings. So they're going to address that, so I had.
Missing sidewalks?
There's a little bit of sidewalk that's been left out according to the original of what was approved, so. So they're gonna, they're going to address that, I guess, hopefully soon. And, but I'd already, put it on the agenda.
So an as-built has been prepared and
No,
submitted?
well, the as-built for the connector, now the as-built for the entire subdivision, they're still working on that, and they're hoping to get that. I mean, they're gonna be looking for a fall, acceptance, so.
So is everybody in, they're at the wit's end in terms of
Yeah.
snow removal?
No, I know. Well, I mean, it's,
Spring's out of the question, I mean,
I'm sorry?
spring town meeting, April
Well, I don't
town-
see how they could get it
Yeah,
all, I mean, the as-bilt's not even ready yet.
Yeah.
Peter Ogren is still working on the as-bills for the, so we have very little time as it is, I mean, to even hold public hearings.
So he's asking us for a reduction based on the fact that he's completed the connector.
Yeah.
But we don't have the as-bills to demonstrate
Well, we do have the as-built for that.
for that
We
connector,
submitted that for the
but
connector.
but
To
the
get the
the
reduction.
bond is for the entire subdivision,
Well,
am
it
I right?
covers the entire subdivision, but he's only asking for an amount to cover the connector, except the connector itself, when they checked it, there's been some elements that are still missing. It's almost there, but it's like, you know.
But they can't put them in now.
Well, they'll have to, yeah, not right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess that's the problem.
they did clean up what was otherwise, confusing,
Yeah, I mean, they've
part
actually
of
removed
roadway.
that,
It
they've
looks
removed
good,
that
yeah.
turnaround, I mean, it goes straight through now, I mean, it looks pretty good, they just
does.
have to, fix it up so that it
Right.
actually matches the.
So,
What's the
So-
right number?
and,
So we'll put that back.
so did John put numbers on?
Oh, on the, yeah, actually, I had this thing right here.
Okay, there.
He actually did an inspection on January 16th, said there was a portion of the sidewalk not installed, shoulder not completely grassed, and 3 trees not planted.
And yet, the bond, while it was held up because of this connector, nonetheless, was to ensure compliance with the roadways within the entire sub and
Yeah,
stormwater
it covers the
management.
entire, but yeah, he's only requesting a portion, but since, I mean, this is an as-built for the, I mean, he's requesting an amount to actually pay the contractor for the connector itself. I mean, if the connector's not done, then they need to complete the improvements before we can even act on it.
So is that the first item, is reconstruction of CLWP, and that's what we're talking about, right? That's the connector?
City Lane.
Yeah, City Lane
Wilson Pond.
Wilson Pond and
Yeah.
So that was 233,000.
Yeah, yeah.
So he's done most of the work, so,
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
the whole subdivision is done, and then
but once that's gone, there's not much money left.
yeah, but we haven't,
I mean, if you,
And we're holding 285?
233, I think.
Oh, 3?
238?
Is it 278?
So, no, we're starting at 336, we'd be down to 298. He wants us to reduce it by 298, which leaves 37,758. I mean, I have my own concerns about that.
I'm
because-
not comfortable with that.
Yeah, it seems like if we don't get the as-bills, that itself could cost,
Yeah.
a significant portion of the bond.
Right, and some of this work has been done, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
It may be time for repairs, I mean, for some of this stuff, and who
Yeah,
knows?
yeah.
Right. So,
And that's what,
I can just get a motion to consider it.
I wasn't, when I realized that it was already on the agenda, when I got John's, review this first of this week, so it was already on the agenda, I didn't think we'd go forward with it,
Do you think it's appropriate to take a vote, or should we just table it for
until
now?
I'd table it until we at least get,
Works with me.
Yeah.
until they address those issues that are outstanding.
So I think that we don't even need.
I make a motion to continue it to our next meeting.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Great. It's only been a week, or 2 weeks, so any updates, or anything?
Let's see, we'll have a a public hearing on February 7th for the, like I said, for the 50 Newberry Road. There's an OSRD, which is right beside the Sullivan property. And actually, speaking of Sullivan, he wants us to assign the plans because they're going to be closing soon. So they want to get signed plans, so I have it here for everybody to sign.
You get the right magic markers, Eddie?
I have what we have. We have several boxes of that same magic marker.
I'll bring them over.
You want to run it down to your office and get them?
I will get them.
But other than the Montessori School will be on an agenda for a public hearing for a site plan review in March because of they got cited by the zoning for zoning violation because they kind of bumped up the number of children and the ages of the children. So they need.
I'm sorry, what school is it?
This is the Montessori School over here, over on Weathersfield. I forgot what the address. It's just right up the road. You know,
Right.
up here on the. But apparently they're going to need to do a parking plan for it, for the or a site plan review.
Isn't that need Board of Appeals?
Well,
No,
we never approved that facility.
Yeah, and I guess it's become recently more intensified.
They kind
And they were
of
cited
doubled
by-
the area, I believe, or something close to that.
Yeah, and so Ken has cited them, and he wants them to come to the planning board for a site plan review to look at the traffic flow in the park.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that facility got authorized without any.
I think it got authorized initially as a nonprofit, and it wasn't.
But it was for little kids.
Yeah, for little kids, but they actually brought in more kids. Apparently they're bringing in more kids.
Older
accepting
ages.
more-
So
older
what used to be
ages.
preschool is now turning
Yeah,
into a.
so they've lost, I
one-
think I think they're still going
We
for
may
the
need a
non.
bigger room for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think by right, preschool is approved.
Oh, yeah.
And by, when you add older kids, it is
Yeah.
not a legal.
There's a certain age limit, they've crossed that threshold.
I don't know,
So they're no longer considered a nonprofit.
There's a state law, it's called the Dover Amendment, so you can't prohibit schools, any kind of school, including daycare, I believe.
Right.
But the state law does say essentially you can conduct site plan review.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
So, I mean, I think Ken is in the right for.
Well, yeah, Ken's the way we refer them to us. He will lift the.
But it's kind of strange that we'd be asked to review the parking expansion when we didn't review the initial building.
Yeah. Well, it's because they've intensified and increased the number.
I remember it being here.
As I recall, the applicant came in for an informal meeting, and we talked about it. And
I think you're right.
She was gonna submit a plan, but she never did. That's my recollection.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
When was that?
It was a while ago.
5 years ago.
I think maybe 10, I don't know.
No, I wasn't here then.
Oh, you weren't? Oh, well, whatever.
So, I mean, I think.
Yeah, because it never went.
So she's been served with a notice to cease and desist.
Yeah.
If she wants to get herself back in order, then she does need to know that she needs to come through with a site plan review request.
Like try to write down like no one keeping.
No, I think he's
It's hard
allowing,
to focus
I think he's
just on
allowing
the
her to
parking
operate,
expansion
but
without
actually,
looking at the bigger picture, you know.
and they've actually
Right.
submitted, there was a
Right.
time limit that
Because-
they had to submit.
I mean, it's also
From
an
neighbors.
intensified use, not
But
just
they have
parking.
submitted
Yeah.
an
There's
application.
probably a
and
playground
they will
there,
be
you know.
on March.
What is this site again?
So they change the building and all the
It's
house.
actually a back lot.
I think it was, there were.
You know where they have the,
No, it was it was
Christmas
really
time, they
due
got
to
it on a
intensification
tree
of the
like
number of
this,
children,
that
the
great
age
big
of
tree,
the
they have
children.
that Santa Claus that's
But
plastered
because
on the
of-
tree.
Oh, yeah,
so-
they do, as a matter of
It's
fact.
almost right
increased
across
traffic
from
flow.
Okay.
and increased
I'll look at the way.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
it's I don't know what it is,
Well,
but
you
it
said
just
that
looks like
before.
somebody
We
planted
should
a
decide.
tree that's stuck on that big tree up front. It's almost.
What number
Looking at it.
What is it, state
Kirk, what
law?
number
That's
Weathersfield is it?
allowed.
I'm sorry.
What number Weathersfield is this game?
Well, actually,
I don't know that he's up there anymore.
There's one person down that way.
It might have been an elf or.
You know, as of last week, they were still fully lit up. Some people like to keep them out, keep it going.
And Generous is on the 7th, because I'm not, I
Legal
won't,
circuit.
don't think I'm available that night.
Oh, I'm not available.
Oh, boy,
What, on the
I
seventh?
just realized that.
it's gonna be a tricky one. Can we do it, well, we've already marked some things, we could
Well, yeah, already
renotice.
said- well, we got, is everybody else gonna be here? It's a
But if
special.
Larry can't be here, we're really kind of,
Well, you know, that was the other thing that I talked with Larry, and I mentioned this to you about, this was the other thing we wanted to raise was the procedure for when we do these plan submittals, that holding the public hearing and getting the public input and then instructing Larry to do his review and to come back with a technical report at the next meeting the meeting after the public hearing. And I think you were mentioning, and I've seen it done that way as well. I mean, I'm amenable to either one, but that, you know, I think you do that in Ipswich.
Yep.
and-
Oh, really? Yeah, they do.
I mean, I think we do it this way. I know that's the process that I've kind of adopted,
Yeah.
or inherited, I should say. But I think what you're suggesting makes a great deal of sense. You know, give them the opportunity to revise before Larry takes a look at,
Yeah, because if you had had this meeting in the very beginning,
Mhm.
I've already looked at that thing twice, and there's, like I said, in the middle, that middle part of my report, might as well throw it out the window, but I had to throw, you know, put those comments in.
Sure,
They're
sure.
not gonna-
Right, because it's still a plan review. No, I think, I mean, there's a couple of things along those lines that we should be working on. And
It just slows up the process, I think.
Do you think it's?
And I can see why it might work for a controversial item like this,
Yeah.
but for most of our
I think it doesn't affect it.
applications, you know, I mean, it just seems to me it's adding a step and,
But how do we decide, because I don't know how, like,
well, yeah, you could, the chairman could decide on a case-by-case basis, I mean, you know.
And it might be decided on my workload if he gives me something and says we're having a hearing in 2 weeks.
yeah, I mean, I think with this one,
we absolutely defer to that. You know, if you can't do it, we're not going to ask you to.
yeah.
But you know what I mean, if it's just an expansion of Ipswich Bay Glass, they want
Right.
to add 20,000 feet. You
Yeah.
know, we're kind of just dragging the process
Well,
out.
yeah, well, those, and things like the, like.
So do you think that, and I don't mean to cut you off, go ahead.
Oh, no, like the dog training thing out at 317 Haverhill, or, you know, small projects like that. I mean, I would have a tendency to try to expedite
Right.
those, and I always have. But in like something like this, they came in and they were in a rush, and when you're actually, and this also goes back to having like how many meetings you have available. So if you tell them, well, this is the next meeting. And if they can conceivably make that meeting and they're 3 weeks in front, and I can actually get an ad in and advertise, well, that speeds it up. And so we hold the public hearing as quickly as possible, and sometimes I think it puts a lot of pressure. I hit Larry with something, and he's only got a few weeks, and it's happened more and more because we're just busier. I mean, there's just more stuff coming at us.
So I really don't like to hear people say that we're in a rush, because
Right.
that is
Irrelevant.
It's not our problem.
No, so-
And that we should use the regular process, and you don't wanna hear it either, when you say you're in
No,
a rush, because
you know,
I don't mind trying to accommodate someone if we can.
in the small things, you might be able to.
Remember 2 years ago, we rushed an A&R so that she can get a state buyout? I mean, that was
That's what
appropriate.
it was, yeah,
Yeah.
that's.
yeah.
But I mean, you think we wouldn't be violating any due process requirements
Oh,
by,
no, no.
by,
I mean,
by
it's-
making a case-by-case determination?
I don't think so.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, we could,
Because I think you make a perfect example. I mean, if,
Because, well, in reality, we don't even need an engineer, I mean, we need him.
On the small things, yeah,
Right.
that you might want to expedite.
you know.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those cases, that's what we do anyway. I just think
Go around
like
the
a
bend.
situation like this,
Wicked
What's that
and the
intersection?
brighter G1s, there's some bigger
Okay.
projects that have
Vincent
happened
Lane
that are,
and
that sometimes they do need a little bit more time, I think, for the review.
Oh,
Sure,
You know,
residential,
Yeah.
it's like a
be
ranch.
open to that,
Right.
so.
Just what they want to see.
It's like
Okay.
the dog training place that you didn't really get involved in, and like these sign lighting and things like that, you don't get involved in that. But like the dog kennel over at 104 Newburyport Turnpike, that's a little more involved, and that might have been, you know, more that where we actually hold the public hearing and then let Larry do a full technical review. or something like
I have a
that.
question about that, the dog kennel across the bank. That was a change of use on the building, wasn't it?
No, that was.
That wasn't a dog kennel originally, that was.
Oh, no.
so-
Well, it's not a dog kennel, it's dog
The
training.
dog training.
A kennel would not be allowed.
No, but the
Yeah.
dog training, but that was
Yeah.
a change of use from the original building.
Well, the dog kennel is not a good case to compare.
No, I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about, remember the bank, and I think we kind of forgot a step. I don't think we ever asked for a curb cut. Because you said whenever there's a change of use in a building, the state requires a curb. Was that state road or a town road, is that why?
That's one fifty-three.
So that's a town road. So
But
that was
the
why.
traffic flow was very
Yeah.
minimal that we like established early on that there would be, because they were actually going out and picking up the dogs rather than having customers come in.
So the.
Although it is a complicated intersection, I mean, even driving by there, you know, getting in and out of there is a problem.
I think that we, particularly when we know a project is gonna be around for a while, then I think it might be appropriate to hold the hearing first and then decide that, when the applicant's ready to say, okay, well, now we have some input, we may, it's probably more efficient for them, at least from their, how they spend their money with us, to make the revisions based on comment, before they get a technical review of it.
I agree.
So I guess if we can do it case by case and we're not.
We know which case is gonna have lots of people turning out.
Right,
In general, yeah.
right.
Ari's got plenty to do.
But then again, I don't,
Sometimes.
I don't think, somebody suggested that there may be some plans, and A&Rs, yes, we don't even talk to Larry about it. But anything that's gonna require stormwater management, it's going to Larry, I'm not making a determination on, whether the plan's to scale and has all the proper notations and, that's what I need to say.
So what was the idea that someone brings in, say, to do a building or whatever, what you're talking about is they come in here a couple of times and we make all the landscaping comments and all the angles of the building, and then like, when they satisfy what we like, then Larry takes a look at the plan after they revise it a few times from our comments? Is that kind of what you're talking about?
In the public hearing.
Yeah, in the public hearing.
Everybody else's opinions on it.
So instead of like the first meeting, that guy's plan goes to Larry, and then Larry changes it, then we talk about it.
Consider this, though.
It does make more sense for us to discuss it back and forth.
Yeah.
And then, not necessarily the final draft, but after that, say, a second or third meeting, all of our stuff has been met, then send it over there.
Well, I think after the first meeting, it should go to Larry.
Right, for instance,
Sometimes not, just right after the application.
had we followed that procedure with the solar field, Larry wouldn't have even looked at that first, plan that they abandoned. Because, we would have had the meeting, and then they would have had to come to their own realization, and then the first plan he would have reviewed would have been this plan. So, it seems like.
On the other hand, it helps for them to understand, having Larry's report as well as our comments helps the applicant to understand that they need to consider alternatives to what they were proposing, whereas.
What really drove that first iteration was the wetlands.
Yeah, the wetland change.
That's
That's
what
when
they
they
stay out of
changed
the
the wetland.
wetlands
Yeah,
and not
drove it away,
impact,
yeah.
Right.
and not impact the buffers, and that's why they changed it. And,
Which was a mistake.
yeah, but they ended up like bringing more people out
Well,
as a result. I'm surprised they didn't see it.
You know what I see here? I see a lot of space in her backyard that could have had a solar field.
Yeah.
And then planting some trees.
And she didn't want to see it from her house.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Well,
That's what they were thinking as well. It was, I heard people say that, like, I mean, that everybody else is going to see it, but it's totally away from the property owners on site.
So, that being said, it would be hard to draw up a procedure for that. Let's just play it by ear and do it on a case-by-case basis. Yeah. I also noted that you have, I wonder what gave you this idea. We should consider a different process for reviewing solar photovoltaic.
The only thing I was like going to bring up was because just because it's a site plan review, and since it kind of gives the board a lot less latitude. I'm not sure what when it was first adopted, if there was a reason for it just being a site plan review, but if I didn't know if we might want to consider after this giving the board a little more latitude in dealing with these and deciding whether it's actually, if it's not appropriate for a property, that you can actually have the discretion to deny it outright.
As a special permit?
Yeah, with a special permit. Or is there a reason why?
Is there any federal rules
Well, the state, the attorney, or no, the gentleman over here read the state law, which says that a town can't prohibit solar facilities.
That you couldn't deny
so-
an application if it's not right, if it's.
You can't, I believe you can't have an outright prohibition of those, but.
Well, not a prohibition,
Yeah,
but
but I don't know.
special permit.
But a special permit would indicate that we can say yes or no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where a site plan, I mean, I get what you're saying. I think,
it'd be sued if you denied a special permit.
right, I think we should consider different review criteria
Well, that's-
for a solar
yeah,
array in the outlying district.
Well, that's what he was pointing out, what was it about,
Well, that's-
what he cited was a lot of criteria that we don't really even have. We have the site plan review criteria, but we don't have
I think we
criteria.
cover a lot of
Nothing
those.
specific, no.
Yeah, nothing
Yeah.
really
But
specific.
we're not, you know, we're not,
Additional setbacks and things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
right.
he was talking about.
so, we had no expertise in these things, so, you know,
Yeah,
it's hard
no,
to just
no,
write, write rules on it.
Yeah, no.
I mean, time to
I
town
just didn't know
adopts the bylaw to.
Yeah.
I didn't know if, in light of these kind of situations, as we might learn more, you know, and go through these kind of, say, if there are things that we can keep in mind to address, because I know you were talking about keeping a list of things, to, you know, ideas for which to amend the bylaw in case if we see a need as, you know, time goes on.
Well,
But this,
if
I
you-
didn't know if this would be.
If you
one.
get this far, I think he gave us really good input for
Conditions
for
and.
conditions.
Yeah,
of
I
the
agree.
approval.
Yeah.
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 I mean, a lot of those things have to be done, but some of that aren't done or
Right.
should be
Yeah.
conditioned, so.
Right.
Because a lot of them we've already thought about, but
Right.
Oh, and then the other thing
Yeah, it's good.
under that was about the registered marijuana, the definition. And I think we had discussed this before when we had the hearing for the retail marijuana, and the gentleman from Nature's Remedy was in the audience, David Miller, and he was pointing out there's an issue with the definition in terms of nonprofit, that would kind of create a problem for them. It's actually, I think it's creating, I mean, other towns are realizing it as well, but having nonprofit in the definition kind of makes it.
Excludes profit, for profits.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So it might be just as easy as getting rid of the word,
Yeah, nonprofit.
defining, you know, what type of dispensary it is. We just said marijuana dispensary, therefore it would be profit or non-profit.
Getting rid of the word nonprofit?
Just get rid of the
Well,
word
that's what I
non-profit.
thought we were doing, that's what
Yeah.
I suggested.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's the issue? Is
Oh,
it-
that I
What
could just
idea?
draw, like, because we still have time to put hold a public hearing, we can generate a proposed article, just showing that, and then hold a public hearing in February, and get it on
I thought Debbie had some issue about our proposal, that she had talked to town council and there was some
Well,
problem.
she did, but she called me I think she addressed that, and she gave me suggestions about the language, and it really comes down to striking that,
Just striking that one
yeah, striking
phrase or
that
term.
one phrase so that it actually.
It's
already
been
had a
approved
public
too, and they just recently modified their approvals to strike the word nonprofit, and that was based on George Hall's, their town attorney judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
That's
that's
why-
all you need to do is just eliminate those words, and that means that anyone can.
Yeah.
And we had the
So-
public hearing already.
No.
Oh, no, that was for the retail, recreational.
We created a
Well,
buffer.
I know all
yeah.
about the medical one because
But this will actually.
I had to work on it.
Oh, I thought you said taking it.
No, I don't need it.
So then it would basically read an entity
Well,
registered.
right now it's based on need, in a couple of months it'll
Thank
be
God
based
we
on
have some
want.
humor. And I have to sit next to Mark. He keeps
So-
talking about the glare from my house and we gotta have
I
a
can see
zoning
it from, I can
ordinance
see it from my
against it.
house.
No, you can't.
I got one of them Zoom lifts I can.
So then the definition for RMD would read just an entity registered by the Massachusetts Department of Health under
Yeah,
one of
that's all you
those.
need to do.
So,
Let's have a public hearing.
that, hopefully there's not a lot of creative writing in that.
No, it's.
Okay.
Well, we just have, unfortunately.
I don't wanna burden you too much.
Strike two words.
Well, we have to-
Designated word.
So, but do we wanna, cause I don't think we can hold it on February 2nd, so do we wanna have a second meeting in
Just as
February?
long as it isn't the last Wednesday of the month.
But here's the thing, I'm traveling from the 14th through the 23rd.
Okay.
So I don't even know,
And I'm out until from the 1st to the 8th.
Okay. But if everybody wants to, just confirm, send me an email with your schedules, we can set something.
You have one.
I think right now we're stuck with the second,
Yeah, I got
you know, given the short month, I think we're probably gonna have to just look to March again.
Oh, March, like 1st of March. Well, I mean, we'd have the first week of March
What's on
7th.
the
We just do it on
7th?
March 7th.
Because I just need to know what's on the 7th. So.
Oh, what's on the 7th?
Yeah.
The new, and this is a perfect example of whether we should
continue.
The new one on, is it 50 Newberry?
50 Newberry, yeah.
50 Newberry, which is an OSRD. There's a perfect example. We should hold the hearing and then let Larry take a look at it.
Yeah, and that's probably why it's a big enough project.
Big enough project to
just
do that.
because it's like the Sullivan project, so.
Okay. So that would be something, wouldn't be on your table,
Okay.
on your plate
And
before then.
623 is continued.
623 is continued, 104 Newburyport Turnpike has already been continued to that date, so.
What's that, dog problem?
Dog
kennel.
And I have nothing new on that, but if I get something before the 7th, I'll try to turn response around to the board.
Okay, great.
With me not being here, so that's it?
Yeah,
So-
in that,
Good. So,
Make a motion, adjourn?
what about minutes?
leave it on for a sec. We're all, minutes are,
And also my performance.
like eating your vegetables. Oh,
I looked at it, but I haven't filled it out.
what's, so tell me, Kurt,
Comments from Sarah.
LA. Is there anything, you know, aside from the fact that there's an obligation on our part to complete it, is it preventing anything, does it have any detrimental impact on you?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No,
All right.
I don't think so. They didn't,
I mean, so,
I don't think it's like,
Make a motion, we continue it to our next meeting.
okay.
What are you continuing?
My
Planner's
performance
performance review.
Oh.
The spelling part of that?
what?
Yes.
No, you can't count spelling and.
I didn't know there was a section for grammar.
I saw one this afternoon, but I can't find it now. January had two
Why don't we do
answers.
the minutes?
I don't think you put a period in that sentence.
Are they that difficult?
You know, I was a little surprised at just the volume of each meeting's minutes.
The length, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
70 pages.
I think it's a skill, trying to figure out
Yes.
how to edit it, you know?
exactly.
So,
I mean, I haven't seen any come back. Can you edit one?
Oh.
good, that's a good.
You know,
I've just been,
I've done.
You want someone to edit? Right there. There he is.
No,
He's the guy.
But wait, I mean,
He's the one.
shouldn't the town planner and yourself be working on this, you know?
Well,
I
she
mean-
does the initial draft, sends it to me, and then I get it ready for the board.
Yeah, she said like the guy in the
But-
blue shirt seconded it. Black
Yeah.
shirt.
So I
That's
did-
before I knew. You
but
still haven't got
usually it's
names, but
close
now
to
at least I know your names.
But,
So.
but I guess my point is, Kirk, you've been with us long enough, you pretty much know what we want in terms of the level of detail.
Yeah, I was just, because
So-
I had been seeking help, like, because it started in June of 2016 when we had like 3 meetings, we had this series of meetings and like in 1 month, it was like 3 meetings, and I started to fall behind gradually. I fall in like 6 months.
Yeah, no, I understand, but
I
I
guess-
guess my point is, see you, Larry.
So I just started
Take care,
looking
thank you.
through
Did the
it.
two of you not work on these together, or?
Oh, together, well,
No,
she works
I-
from home and sends
I
me-
work during the day,
Yeah.
so I,
Yeah.
usually stay at work and type them, although I have a laptop that I'm gonna bring here, so hopefully that'll.
Do you,
But I'd like to see the two of you
Oh,
work on minutes, you know, in other words, you review her draft, and if you got suggestions, send it back to her.
Okay.
And then,
So would you
and
take
then come up, I'm sorry, but,
Please.
and come up with something that you're really both of you are satisfied with, before the people on the board
Yeah.
have to get involved with, you know,
Oh.
are asked to review it.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
So maybe when you get it, you
Yeah.
can go through it and say, or,
Yeah.
this is
Okay.
good, send it back to me.
what I was suggesting,
I'll edit it.
Yeah.
do you type them up in like Word, Microsoft Word?
Yeah.
And you get them and you review them?
Yeah, yeah, and I
So do
did.
you use that track changes feature? Have you ever used that?
No, what is that?
It's great, it's very easy.
What's it called?
Track changes.
Yeah.
It's right there on the screen.
Yeah.
You know.
Once you click it,
Yeah.
if he goes in and edits, all his edits, so if he
Oh,
deletes
I've
it strikes.
seen them,
But
yeah.
it's really easy to manipulate, so when
Yeah,
you wanna
I've
accept
seen
or
that.
reject, it's very easy. So what you could get back from Kirk is exactly what you wanna say, you know.
Yeah.
This is what he liked, this is what, you know, this is what he didn't like.
So if I send that to him, he can't turn it into that track changer, or I have to
No,
send it to
he would,
him?
no, you send him what you ordinarily send him,
Yeah.
he'll turn on track change and then
Okay.
send it back to you with all his markups.
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
that, I have seen that.
So, the kind of thing that I think that is difficult to kind of gauge, but a lot of it is more
Blah, blah,
commentary
blah.
that we
Yeah.
don't kind of need, you know.
But then someone said, what if there's a comment in there that you gotta go back to these in 2 months, or, because, you know, there's like an issue,
Well,
you know?
So that's, and,
When someone
You're right.
said that, I'm like, huh.
It's a lot of
It's
information,
like-
that's for sure.
It's a lot of information, and, you know, I mean, be honest with you, I've never come to a planning board meeting or anything. I do the minutes at where I work for the board meeting, and the guys there, they want detail,
Well,
detail, that's what I
Everybody's gonna
get
be
it.
different, but,
Yeah.
but I mean, Kirk, you certainly, I think would have an idea of what we would regard as excessive.
Oh, yeah.
Or when, on the other hand, we would look at, geez, we really need more detail here, it's so
Yeah.
skimpy, we need something else.
Yeah.
But it is a,
Why don't you do one? Pick one and do it.
Well, I can send you back,
and-
because so far what I've done is I've taken them and then get them into a format and, you know, or into the format, so I can, like these
Yeah.
three.
You have some old ones?
Yeah, I was just gonna think, you have
Yeah,
a whole,
but-
what do you can,
Well, she's producing the first draft, so I would get.
no,
it.
one of your old
for
ones.
instance, as we went through today,
Well,
every one of
I've
these
been
people
doing
had a
it, so we'd have
comment.
to start,
So
like,
we wanna know
because
who the
I
person
usually
was, and if you can
get
get their address,
Yeah.
great, and then just say commented
Go
on
through and-
its impact
and try to
on.
get it.
She's got
Right,
it.
you don't have to go into the whole
You don't have to go
detail.
on
Yeah.
to, you know, he's been here for 15 years, and he,
Oh, yeah,
his dogs
yeah,
love him
like
on
a
the
template.
property,
Yeah.
you know, and
Oh,
he's
yeah.
seen the spotted owl.
Give her like a template.
I've actually,
I did.
I had a run-in with one of those salamanders, I
I thought I gave
was
you a couple
blowing
of
leaves one day, and I
sets
was.
Yeah, and I had looked
Back
at
away,
them, you know, and I did
It's just
notice
wrong.
that
Yeah, and I mean, it is,
they
this is
were
wide as my throat, you
miserable.
know? And,
Yeah,
So how many pages was a
I don't think
general
it's a
meeting, a
kind
2.5 hour
this is
meeting,
those type
2
of things,
pages?
but,
I guess, no, let's see.
I don't think we
Well, I
did
think
well for
that,
that salamander. But I didn't know it was,
They'd always been like.
I didn't know at the
6
time it was,
pages. Is there, so you feel like they're too long now?
I think the leaf blower
That's what
banged
he
up against
said,
the
yeah.
rock wall and
this one
I
is.
mean,
and-
My meeting,
I've
my
seen- they ran away
design
fine.
review meeting.
How long was the meeting?
With 3 or 4 people.
Well, yeah, some meetings are longer than
3.5
others, but-
pages, 4
Yeah.
pages.
Yeah.
If he can take
I'll
one
give you one of
and
those. I
edit
can give
it
you one of
how he
those.
thinks you guys
Yeah,
want
yeah,
it,
that's what
I'll
I'm
change it, then give it to, give it to you that way, to review.
But I'd like to see every set of minutes reviewed by both of you. so-
Right, but I mean, there's 10 of them now, I mean,
The
if he
two of
sends
you
me one, we can stop
correct
there.
it, you know, make it as perfect as possible before it comes to us. That's
Yeah.
all.
And you know, Kirk and I went to a meeting a couple of years ago on the open meeting law, and then it also went into record
I
keeping.
used to bring this off my daughter.
We have to just keep available as far along as we are.
I'm leaving that here.
So there's no obligation for us,
Look
there's
at that.
there's no obligation.
Should never
There's
do
no
that.
timeline by which we have to approve minutes.
I see,
So
yeah.
this is our first record, okay? And then your
Put them this way.
minutes that come in are our second record. And then we,
Should be
and so once you give us the
one
minutes, we
side.
probably get rid
I
of
think
the
it's the
first,
first way to save money.
you know, the,
Well, that's why.
the
You don't
first
wanna,
draft.
you don't wanna get too
Yeah,
far
you don't
behind.
understand
It's
That's true.
It's hard to catch up if you do.
But for now, we do have, your minutes right now do serve as our record, but eventually we'll have approved minutes, and then we'll throw out the earlier drafts.
All right.
Although people
So
recall
you're
almost
pretty much
forever
caught up,
just
except for
because
there's a couple old ones that I haven't
Yeah, we
done.
actually have like, pretty much almost like.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to give them to him before I come to another one.
Yeah, it's just.
But
a
I
matter
didn't,
of-
I'm not quite through with the
Yeah.
ones
Right,
that
and if somebody came in, we'd have to hand them the notes that were.
Well, the thing
Little
is
more, you know,
that
And they're all on video.
Well, that's
anybody who
That's
comes
why
in,
it's
finally some lady
much closer to
anybody who
that.
comes in, they tell them it's on videotape, they can go to the video, they prefer the video. It's really just formal, legally we're required.
All right, let's,
Why
Make a
don't
motion
you
to adjourn.
take one and
Oh,
edit it
One
and send it to
signature?
me?
second.
Yeah, I do need, oh.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
Aye, so we are adjourned.